Good evening, and thank you for joining us here on Iman TV's Global Discussions Issues, again with us tonight. We have a very special guest this evening, a distinguished leader not only on a local level in our community, but on a national level. A person where the New York Times has hailed him as a star, rising star within the Democratic Party, and a person who served as Assistant Deputy Secretary of Commerce in the Obama administration between 2009 and 2011. And he is a graduate of Yale. He is a lecturer and a professor in Stanford and Santa Clara University. And he is an acclaimed author as well. And one of the books that he has written is Entrepreneurial Nation. And the entire title, Why Manufacturing is Still Key to America's Future. Our guest tonight also is a candidate for the 17th Congressional District here in the Silicon Valley. His name is Ro Khanna, and I wanted to welcome him to our studios today. Welcome, Ro.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, let me begin by, first of all, I've seen you in several events here and there, and I've always seen a glow in your eye and that smile when you talk to people and when you greet the public, and I've actually always commended that, and I've appreciated that. And so I really want to know what inspires you to run for public service and do what you're doing and what you want to do in the future.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think my mother, who's far more gregarious and outgoing than me, had some influence on my love for people and getting out in the community, as you are so involved. My inspiration, though, for public service really comes from my grandfather, who was a freedom fighter in India, pre-partition, spent 4 years in jail during Gandhi's independence movement, fighting for human rights, believed in a unified South Asia, not a partitioned India and Pakistan. And his ideals really inspired me to care about human rights, public service.
Fabulous. I mean, we can actually see civil and public work passion like that, especially derived from the origins of what Mahatma Gandhi did. We saw 50 years of the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King, who was heavily influenced by Gandhi, and we see basically its roots here in America as well. And so that's actually beautiful that a person that inspired MLK has become a inspiration to you as well and to your family. Let me go into some of the work you've done. You were Assistant Deputy Secretary of Commerce in the Obama administration. How has that line of work that you've done shaped the way you view and the work that you do today?
Well, first of all, it was an incredible honor to serve in this president, in an administration, serving my country. I was overseeing our 109 commerce offices to help small businesses around the country compete, to bring manufacturing back here to export. And I got to travel around the country and meet entrepreneurs, meet businesses, hear their stories, see what allows them to compete here with the global pressures. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is the ones that are succeeding are the ones that are the most productive, the most innovative, and what policies they need to simplify regulation, to help entrepreneurship, so that we can continue to create jobs here and help small businesses. And it was a fabulous 2 years.
Wow. And after your tenure at the Department of Commerce, you actually came across writing this book. And so what are some of your takeaways and given this book, where can America rebound in the manufacturing industry?
Well, the book really came about from my travels, as I saw around the country that there were small businesses that were succeeding, and people would ask me, what is the hope for my kids? Where can they find jobs? Where can they go into manufacturing? And the book tries to provide an answer to say, yes, there are competitive pressures we're facing and low wages overseas, But companies here that are being innovative, that are being productive, can still keep manufacturing. And we need to prepare people for the new jobs in manufacturing, teaching them how to program, teaching them how to operate CNC machines, how to operate robots, how to understand advanced programming and 3D printing. And if we can prepare folks for those skills, we can still have these jobs in the United States.
Absolutely. I think many people might, think that all of manufacturing has basically left the U.S. or a bulk of it, but I think we still have somewhat of a leadership role on a global platform still. And I think what we need to do is excel that and basically try to take it back where the earlier generations had America as a leader in manufacturing. How well do you think that you will be able to, with your experience and expertise in your 2 years in office, be able to provide once you are in Congress and be able to help out manufacturing in America?
Well, you're absolutely right that we're still a global leader. We're actually neck and neck with China. We produce about 20% of the world's goods. China produces 20% of the world's goods. And so the challenge is to figure out, well, what are we good at still making in the United States? We're great at making aerospace products, and medical equipment, certain type of chemical equipment. And then the question is, well, how can we continue to compete in these industries? And that means, I think, simplifying regulations, not lowering standards, but using technology to have a one-stop shop. So a manufacturer, small business owner doesn't have to deal with 50 different regulatory agencies. It means having a competitive environment and tax code that's not based on the 1960s, but adopted now. So some companies don't have gross loopholes, but other companies are able to compete and stay here. And it means preparing a skilled workforce for these jobs. So understanding what are the new needs for the manufacturing workforce. And given my experiences, I think in the book I wrote, it lays out an agenda of what we need to do. And I think it can be something bipartisan that Republicans and Democrats can agree on.
Absolutely. You just touched on some very important issues that are very important to your constituents here in the Silicon Valley in the 17th Congressional District. Number one being jobs,
right,
and also manufacturing. I mean, we have a Tesla plant here in Fremont, and of course we're in the heart of Silicon Valley as well, and on the cutting edge of technology, innovation, and what have you. And we basically have a platform as a global leader when it comes to that. And I think such experiences that you have and that make up Ro Khanna it's vital to the needs of our society today. And saying that, I know you're running for Congress, and what are some of the priorities that you have in your congressional campaign?
Well, it is to have a new vision for our innovation economy, for education in the 21st century. And let me be a little more specific. One of the things we have to do is champion entrepreneurs and small businesses. You know this as someone who's been an entrepreneur. It is extraordinarily difficult. People max out their credit cards. They're struggling to make ends meet. We need to make their life simpler. Providing a tax credit for the incorporation fee of $800 that they face. Figuring out how to get them access to capital by having government provide matchmaking programs. Figuring out how to have a one-stop shop for their regulations that they face. In our education system, figuring out how to get more young women into STEM and making sure that in a place where we only have 1 in every 7 engineers that are women, figuring out how to inspire young girls to pursue those fields. Teaching coding in the classroom at a young age so that folks have the skills for the 21st century. And having accountability in our schools so that we pay good teachers more, but we have high standards and expect a lot of our students, our parents and teachers to be competitive in the 21st century. So my focus in Congress is really going to be on the economy, creating good paying jobs, and preparing a 21st century workforce.
You were speaking on education, and actually, before our interview, we had opened up for some questions on
Wonderful.
Facebook as well.
Okay,
And
high tech.
yeah, and you know, coming from this area, we have to pay our respects to IT as well. And so,
let me just say there that, you know, one of the things I think Congress should do is adopt these 21st century platforms to communicate with folks. I mean, it's antiquated. To reach your congressperson, you got to call them or write a letter. We ought to be using these platforms of Facebook, like your show is, Twitter, and having just much more accessibility. And I think the new generation of congresspeople have to be directly accessible to constituents.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at when President Obama came here to the Facebook headquarters with Mark Zuckerberg, it was actually extremely welcomed by especially the young demographics throughout the country and even worldwide.
Right.
And we've seen some of the positive roles social media has had in our society, not only here in America, but elsewhere as well.
Absolutely.
And so I think you know, we should always have that face-to-face town hall meetings, but at the same time, given, like you mentioned, some of the challenges that we have in our daily lives and the busy schedules that we have, I think, like you mentioned, our government officials should be, you know, welcoming and utilizing such tools that they have
Right.
before them. And I think it can be key in having a strong bridge between those people who they're serving,
Right.
and being able to have those communication lines open so that they can truly reflect the concerns of the people who they represent, whether it's on a state level or a national level. And I actually appreciate that of you as well, that you're engaged in social media and in Facebook and elsewhere as well. And so, given that, as you know, one of the questions that we got from Facebook is actually from a young man named Hamid, who says, with student loan interest rates doubling from 3.4 to 6.8%,
Right.
recently, college affordability is literally on everyone's mind, from parents to students to lawmakers, pretty much everyone. What would you do to lower tuition costs?
Well, it's a subject close to my heart because I took out loans to go to law school. I grew up in a middle-class family. For me, I had to take out those loans. I'm still paying those loans back. So I believe every student in this country who makes good grades and works hard ought to have the opportunity to go to school and higher education. And cost shouldn't be a barrier. Specifically, what do? We need to lower the interest rates. I'm for Elizabeth Warren's bill, which would lower interest rates at the level that banks get to lend. But that's not sufficient because you lower interest rates, you increase demand, and colleges can still increase price. Mm-hmm. And so we need other solutions as well. And that's why I gave a TEDx talk recently about using MOOCs to have lessen some of the course load in these universities so students can get credit for online classes, not spend as long in a program, and that may reduce the tuition cost. And I'm hopeful that technology can be used to reduce some of the tuition costs.
You spoke on manufacturing, and if you can just elaborate a little bit more on the importance of community colleges with the overall vision that you have of the 21st century education in America.
Absolutely. Well, we've got such great community colleges right here with Ohlone and De Anza, and they're so critical because not everyone is going to go to a four-year university, and one community colleges can provide the skills in advanced manufacturing and teaching folks how to operate CNC machines and teaching folks how to do metal shop and other classes that can lead to good middle-class jobs. And they can also provide the skills that allow people to transfer later on to four-year universities. We have grossly underinvested as a state and as a country in our community colleges. We need to prioritize the funding of community colleges, and we need to use the MOOCs and new technology to help alleviate some of the overcrowding in community colleges. I mean, I meet kids who can't graduate or taking 4 years, 5 years for something that should take 2 years because the courses are all signed up. And that's where I think MOOCs and online courses can help.
Absolutely. During the economic downturn, I mean, we saw small businesses take a big hit, and they truly are looking for a champion in Congress,
Right.
That could truly reflect their vision and ideals that they have. And being here in the Silicon Valley, I think we are also in the heart of entrepreneurialism and innovation. And what would you do where, let's say the government may have failed small businesses? What would you do differently?
Well, there's such frustration amongst the small business owner here. They hate the extraordinary paperwork that they face. These agencies, the Board of Equalization, others are putting all these demands on them, and it's like no one is looking out for them. One, I'll be a champion to help them cut through this bureaucratic red tape. I mean, most of the people who are the bureaucrats have never started a business, never run a business in their lives, and yet they're dictating all these regulations. And I think a congressperson needs to say, look, the small businesses are responsible for job creation, and someone needs to fight for them. And I will fight the bureaucracy and the red tape. Not lower our standards, but not have inane regulations that aren't making us safer or better. Second, we can use technology to simplify things. Let's have a one-stop shop. If you're a small business owner, you go to one website, and there you can fill out all the regulations you need to comply with, local, state, federal. That's what other countries do, by the way. They have a much more efficient permitting and regulation process. Let's make it easier on small businesses. And then let's not burden small businesses with excessive taxes in making sure that they, which are creating middle-class jobs, helping working families, that they are able to compete and thrive. So I really, when I go to Congress, the people I'm going to fight for, other than working families, are going to be entrepreneurs and small businesses. And I get how important that is to our economic growth.
Absolutely, and much needed. And I think time is crucial as well. And I think I think people are looking for that champion in Congress that could elevate them to the next level and allow their vision and their innovation to take seed and be able to truly strengthen our economy. Now, one thing that I think many people have become fond of you, and they've definitely you've gained a lot of respect, is that you've become against taking special interest money. And actually, given today's politicians, that's one of the first doors they knock on, and that's one of the first phone calls they answer to. So, why do you think it matters to you not to take special interest money?
I was inspired by Larry Lessig and the Root Strikers movement, which said that good people have gone to Washington, but they're in a bad system. And the system basically forces you to take these special interest money, fill out these questionnaires, and then you get beholden to them. And it leads to bad policy. Look at our agriculture bill, where there were gross handouts to corporations because those were the lobbyists that were in the halls of Congress and that were influencing the legislation. Or you get all these corporate tax loopholes because of the lobbyists and the special interests. So what I have said is, no lobbyist money, no PAC money, and let's get every person running for Congress to take that pledge, to start to change the culture of our politics. It's not enough to say, I'll go vote for it. Lead by example, and let's start getting this money out of politics.
And I think many people are actually voicing that frustration that you just mentioned. And I think the longer somebody stays in Congress, the more engaged they become with the old political system. And I think many people are looking for new faces, new ideas, new visions, a new leadership, young, vital leadership that truly understands the issues at hand, and they're not clouded. Their vision is not clouded by lobbyists and super PACs and what have you in Washington that can very easily take someone by surprise. And I think many people that I've talked to, they see that strength in you.
I appreciate that, and my opponent, Mike Honda, he's a very good man, and I'm convinced that he went to Washington with great intentions. But the genius of American democracy is renewal. Every 10 years, 12 years, to have new ideas, to have a new vision. And now we need renewal more than ever before, Because like I said, good people have gotten caught up in a system that is just broken. I mean, Congress is broken. We were discussing earlier, the approval rating is 13%. We need to hit the restart button and say, get the special interests out, get the PACs out, let a new generation go in there and try to get something done and return our Congress to our founding ideals.
Absolutely. One of the things that actually has become very popular, and we were actually at a Sierra Club meeting just a couple of days ago, is fracking, and some of the basically negative aspects of fracking. And with many of our viewers who may be familiar with fracking or not, it's a way of getting natural gases very way deep within the Earth's surface. And here in California, we're living in a lot of seismic faults.
That's right.
And so many are saying that, for instance, some in Louisiana and what have you, some of these sinkholes that are taking place because the chemicals that are going into fracking and the pressure of water to crack the soil deep inside the earth is causing that, and some of the chemicals that are not being regulated and that are not basically under the scope of government is contaminating water in many ways and shapes and forms. And in California, there might be a risk of maybe possibly engaging in seismic activity.
Right.
What is your stance on when it comes to fracking?
Well, we need to regulate it to make sure that it's not hurting our drinking water, that it's not furthering eroding our soil and our environment. And my first priority is let's develop alternative energy. Let's deal with solar. Let's deal with wind. Let's look at other alternatives. And I'm a big supporter of ARPA-E, which is doing groundbreaking research in alternative fuels that don't have carbon emissions. If we're going to do fracking, let's make sure that it's regulated so it's not hurting the drinking water and that we are being very, very cautious. And I'm a strong environmentalist. I mean, I've taken a very strong stand against some of the cement plant in Cupertino and the mercury emissions and the selenium leaking, and taking a very strong stance when I was at the Commerce Department for leading clean tech missions and having the Green Embassy program. So I think people can know that when I get to Congress, I'm going to stand up very strongly for clean technology and for the environment.
I mean, that's an assurance I think the American public needs, especially those who are a part of the 17th Congressional District, being that they're in a very, fracking is where a lot of companies are actually eyeing our neighborhoods as well. Now, coming across another important issue, we've noticed a escalation in crime in our communities, from gang violence to home invasions and robberies and what have you. And this has become a concern.
Right.
I myself, we've been victim of some of these robberies and
Really?
what have you.
Wow.
My mother herself.
I'm sorry to hear that. In Fremont?
Union City, actually.
Wow.
So fairly close. Actually, I had a friend of mine who was carjacked in Mission area of Fremont, which is one of the most posh neighborhoods. And his car, actually, the police were able to find it in Union Landing.
Right.
The person
I've heard
actually,
about these incidents.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming a little bit all too common.
Right.
And the police are actually saying that many of them, their hands were tied. And I personally have, many years ago, when it came to gangs and gang violence, I actually worked with the Fremont Anti-Gang Task Force, and we were able to curb gang violence especially in Fremont. I went to Kennedy High School,
You're
and
local,
and so I was able to kind of get a feel of how much problems and trouble this is causing, and the issues that the families were facing. What will you do in Congress with the authority that you have there to be able to trickle down and help out with some of the concerns that a lot of your constituents have here?
Sorry. Well, first, we need basic gun safety. I mean, the idea after that we can't get universal background checks for people before they could get guns is mind-boggling. And Congress failed to pass even universal background checks, and there's still the gun show loophole. So I will fight very strongly to have universal background checks so that we don't have people in gangs and others getting access to these guns. The second thing is we need to have the resources for our cities and our states to be able to hire police force. That's one of the reasons we don't have enough police in often to be monitoring these things, so they let the petty crimes go, and you don't have to be an expert in criminology to know that if you let petty crimes go, that escalates. So we need a well-funded police force and have enough cops on the street so that we can address the petty crimes. And I think getting that funding is critical. Finally, we need to bring down some of the cost of living here, because what we have is a situation where our police and firefighters and others can't often live in the cities they serve because the housing is too expensive. And so we have to figure out how we strengthen the basic safety nets with Social Security and Medicare for folks. We have to figure out how do we have the right type of opportunities for people to get affordable housing, and how we pay people enough wages who serve our city that they can live in the communities that they serve.
Yeah, I think many people can rest easy to know that we have a leadership that is definitely concerned and focused when it comes to their safety and the safety of their families, and believe me, that's actually very close to my heart as well. And just to know that my neighbor will be able to sleep easily at night is just priority number one for me as well.
Well, and we need leaders like you, because I think ultimately it's citizen leaders that create safe communities. And I was horrified. Did you read that story in I think it was Oklahoma, where an Australian was visiting our country, and 3 teenagers between 16 and 17 shot him in cold blood. And they asked him what was the motive, and they said, we were just bored. We wanted to see what it would be like to kill someone. Now, something has gone wrong with our culture when that is happening. And we need, from this district, the 17th district, with all its incredible diversity and our spiritual strength, with all the religions of the world represented, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, we need to bring a new sense of understanding, of empathy, of compassion, and community leaders like you. I think that's really what's going to root out violence in this culture.
I mean, I'm personally humbled by your words, and I appreciate that, and I always pray that we can all be steadfast and making our communities and our neighborhoods better and safer. And you just touched upon something very important within a good portion of the people in your district as well. Like you said, I think we are blessed to be in the Bay Area. We're blessed that we have so much diversity, so much culture and traditions that we truly can appreciate one another's backgrounds and ethnicities and what have you, from different faiths and belief systems. And I think it's a blessing. It's a true blessing that we have. But one of the issues that we're facing, especially within the Muslim community, there's a large Muslim population. Actually, in Northern California, one of the largest mosques is here in Santa Clara, MCA.
Yes.
And one of the things that we have basically a concern over and a frustration is, especially from some of the right-wing conservatives that we see in Washington, what have you, is the anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim rhetoric that is taking place, and this new wave of what is being dubbed as Islamophobia and fear of Islam or Muslims. And mind you, as you may well know, that Muslims are tax-paying, hard-working citizens, and even when it came to 9/11, many Muslims lost their lives in 9/11, and many were first responders who actually came to the help and to the aid of their fellow Americans, and the towers collapsed on them, and so and today you go to your local hospitals, your doctor can be a Muslim. The teacher you send your kids to can be a Muslim. And just like we have all these beautiful faiths, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, all these faiths that make us a global village here in the Bay Area.
Right.
This is one of the biggest concerns that many Muslims have here. How will you be able to address this Islamophobia and the anti-Islamic rhetoric that's taking place once you're in Congress?
Well, I think first I'll talk about our founding. You know, I was born in Philadelphia in 1976. I'm a bicentennial baby, so I'm a student of American history. And our founders actually debated when they said no religious test for political office. And if you look at the transcripts, people say, well, a Muslim may be able to become president with no religious test. And that was debated, and they said, yes, that's fine. So our founders were enlightened. They wanted a society where we welcome people regardless of faith. And that was the founding principle of this country. And I think hearkening back to the founding principles is important. And I've had a record over my last decade of public life of standing up strongly for civil liberties. Everyone knows, or many people know, that I took a very strong stance in 2003 against the war in Iraq and against portions of the Patriot Act that profiled South Asians, not just Muslim Americans, but Sikh Americans and others. And I will continue to be a fierce advocate for civil liberties, against racial profiling, for religious pluralism, and to understand that it is, as you put it, a huge source of strength here, that in a country of great faiths like Christianity and Judaism, that we also have people of Islamic faith. And this is a strength of America to be a leader in the world.
And I appreciate that. And actually, like you mentioned, the Founding Fathers have left a welcoming mat for Muslims. A very a quote from Benjamin Franklin, who said that, I pray for the day to see the Mufti of Istanbul preaching, not just preaching Islam from the pulpit of Philadelphia.
Did he say that? I was, okay.
Benjamin Franklin himself.
Right.
And many know that Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence,
Yes.
had a Quran in his
course.
personal library.
And Keith Ellison swore in on that.
Exactly.
And
so we have a tradition of that acceptance and the tradition of the welcoming mat that we want to keep and be able to contribute to the society as well.
When I believe in American exceptionalism, which means I think America is the greatest nation in the world, what is the principle of American exceptionalism is exactly this: no religious test. We're a nation not of blood or religion. We're a nation of philosophical ideals. When we don't treat every faith with equal respect and empower it, we betray our own American ideals. We make us less than what we can be, which is the greatest nation ever in existence. And so, to me, I think when we talk about the rights of Muslim Americans or Sikh Americans, what we're really talking about is the philosophical principles underlying this country.
Absolutely. You mentioned that you had a stance against the war in Iraq.
I did,
and actually we appreciate that. And we saw the massive loss of life on all sides, from the innocent civilian casualties to a lot of our young soldiers who went in there, didn't know exactly why they were going into Iraq. And now we have another dilemma facing the nation and facing the country. Just today, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, Secretary of State John Kerry, and Admiral Dempsey were all commissioned before the Senate, and they actually had to answer some tough questions on Syria.
Right.
And this is actually an issue that I personally myself have condemned the Assad regime for its brutality against its people, against common protesters trying to voice their frustration over the government's inability to provide, and how he retaliated towards them, and the possibility of him using nerve gas or chemical weapons against his own people are very disturbing. But at the same time, it's also, I'm a little weary of war and of military action, and so I wanted to get your take on it as well. What do you think? How do you feel the U.S. should respond to Assad and Assad's regime, if anything?
Well, first, I share your horror with Assad and what he is doing. I mean, he has been evil in terms of using chemical weapons against children and women, and it seems the evidence is pretty overwhelming of that, the use of that. And certainly we ought to condemn it in the strongest language. The question, though, about the use of force is a different question. And there I would be very wary to be unilateral. The history of our country, when President Bush first went in the first Gulf War, he assembled a coalition of 70, 80 countries. And that, I think, it was contributed to the mission's success. And I think before we take any action, we have to build, we can't be the world's policeman. We need to build an international coalition. And I haven't seen evidence of that, nor have I seen evidence of international action. And I don't think it's for America's place to go unilaterally in these areas.
Absolutely. And now, transitioning to another issue that is going to be on the spotlight pretty soon during your campaign, actually in 2014, and the withdrawal effort of combat troops from Afghanistan. As you know, that Afghanistan has become the longest war in U.S. history,
right,
surpassing the Vietnam War, unfortunately. And so many lives as well in Afghanistan have been lost from U.S. troops to a lot of civilian casualties. And I've personally myself, I have always condemned loss of life from all angles, and especially those of children, women, and innocent people, no matter under whose hand it was. And with this withdrawal, we were actually recently invited to the White House,
right,
just about a month ago. And this was actually a concern with the administration as well, that how we will be able to have a balanced transition of power in Afghanistan, because probably a solid 80% or 70% of Afghan security is based on the presence of U.S. soldiers there. Mm-hmm. And at the meantime, the U.S. is also has a lot of effort to strengthen the Afghan National Army and what have you, and be able to also protect its borders.
Right.
So, basically, my question to you is, what do you think how the U.S. should go about in this transition in Afghanistan, and ultimately end the war? Is something Afghans are looking forward to. Many Americans are frustrated with the war and the cost of the war, which is billions of dollars
right,
a month that we're spending in Afghanistan, and the loss of lives from our young soldiers to a lot of innocent civilians in Afghanistan. How do you think we can come across a balanced approach in ending the war in Afghanistan?
I think we have to look at what our original mission was in Afghanistan, which was to strike al-Qaeda and bring to justice the people who had committed the crimes of 9/11. And what we had done is way overstayed that original mission. I mean, that we've been in there for over a decade. Mm-hmm. I was opposed to the decision to escalate our troops that the president made. And from accounts that I've read, not any special inside information, it seemed there were a lot of people, such as Vice President Biden, Rahm Emanuel, mm-hmm, and others who were opposed to that escalation. Mm-hmm. I don't see what that has achieved. I think that Afghanistan is just as unstable. And my view is we achieved our mission. We should bring the troops home, and we should help Afghanistan rebuild. But this has to be the responsibility of Afghanistan, and not with a perpetual presence of American troops. I know too many people personally who have served there, who have come back with post-traumatic stress or other issues, or know people who do. And we have also an obligation to treat our veterans with more honor and provide them with services so they can transition into being productive citizens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one final question is, what do you think, you can, how well you can represent Silicon Valley better than your opponent, Mike Honda?
Well, it's a new district that, think about this for a second. If you were going to have a district, and you could draw a district that had Apple, Intel, Yahoo, Google's campuses, Cisco, LinkedIn, Amazon's presence, Tesla. It's an unbelievable district. That's the heart of Silicon Valley. That's cutting edge in every way. And we need thought leadership. We need new vision, new ideas, such as teaching coding in the classroom, such as having special classes or emphasis on getting women into technology, such as figuring out what type of tax incentives we can have to encourage entrepreneurship, such as revising our tax code so it's not dated in the 1960s. This new bold type of thought leadership, risk-taking, disruptive, willing to question the status quo, that's the approach that I think I can take and will take to Washington. And that's the approach, that's the message that is resonating around the district. I think Mike Honda has served honorably. I think it's time for a change and disruption because that's what the country needs, and that leadership has to come from Silicon Valley.
Absolutely, and from where I'm sitting, and from what I've been hearing from the overall public, I think they are ready for that change, and I believe they're ready for new visions, new ideas, someone that can truly represent the innovative way of thinking, the entrepreneurship, and the diversity that Silicon Valley and the 17th Congressional District encompasses. And I believe the decision is fairly clear from my standpoint, and I think our viewers are pretty much also have been able to truly get a good reflection of who Ro Khanna is, what his beliefs are, and how strong of a leadership you are, and how important your leadership in Washington is for the people of this district. And I want to thank you for coming here to our studios today and having this conversation with us. And I look forward for future conversations as well. If there's any final comments you have for the public, feel free.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the chance to be on this show and share my views. This is what I love about politics, the exchange of ideas. And I hope if I do have the privilege of representing you, that you will write in and contact us. You can on our website, www.rokhanna.com. You can on Facebook, Ro Khanna USA. And I will try personally to respond and really hope to be a good representative who is actually accessible and will fight for people in this community.
Ro, thank you again.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.
Likewise, thank you very much.